Now we will move on to Melissa Agnello from Komodo Health and the partnership with Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. Melissa earned her PhD in biomedical science from the University of Southern California in 2015 and went on to complete a postdoctoral fellowship at UCLA as a senior customer service manager at Komodo Health, and she works with life science partners to help reduce the burden of disease through the innovative use of data and technology. Please.
Great. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. It's exciting to be able to attend a conference in person for the first time in 2 years. So really excited to give you an update and an overview of Komodo Health's partnership with the foundation. The partnership has been going on since 2018. I've been leading the partnership for the past year, and this is one of our proudest partnerships, and really excited to show you what we've been able to do. Great, so just to give a little background on Komodo, we always like to start by talking about our mission whenever we talk about our company. Our mission is to reduce the global burden of disease, and we're doing this by building a data set that represents the most comprehensive view of the healthcare system in the US today. So our company was founded in 2014. Our two co-founders had been working in healthcare data, and they realized that healthcare data in the US is a mess. It's siloed, it's really hard to access, it's not standardized, and they realized, there really has to be a better way to get this information all together, and they decided to found Komodo with that goal in mind. Fast forward to today, we're 600 team members strong, we're referred to as dragons, and we have partnerships with over 130 healthcare partners in the life sciences, including patient advocacy organizations like the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. So just a little background on our data. We refer to our data set as our healthcare map. And the goal of our healthcare map is to bring together that siloed data. So we're bringing together thousands of different data sources, and the goal is to create a single version of truth from all of that disparate data. And our data sources include payers, so we're bringing in medical claims information, but we refer to this as a map because it's a layered data set. So we're able to, on top of the medical claims information, layer on additional data. And because we're looking at the patient level, we're really able to trace the patient journey. So we're able to have visibility into all the encounters with the healthcare system that patients have. And we're able to do this completely de-identified. So the data is stripped of any patient identifying information before it ever reaches Komodo. And we've been able to build a data set now that is extremely representative of healthcare in the US. So we're approaching census level data. It's very comprehensive, so the goal is to really be able to see every interaction a patient has with the healthcare system, so then we can study it and understand what is going on. And it's actionable and timely. So our healthcare map is really a living, breathing entity that we're ingesting new data into every single day, and also always looking for ways to expand. So we recently have added, for example, race and ethnicity data to this map so that we're able to, our partners and internally, we're able to use this to investigate disparities in healthcare, which is so important as well. So just a little background on our partnership. We've been working with the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation since 2018. So you can see on the left here when we started our partnership. And as Komodo has grown, we've really been able to expand this partnership. On the right there, you can see Stacy with our chief medical officer at one of Komodo's company-wide conferences back in 2020. Whoops. So I do want to give an overview of some of the things that we've been working on, and then at the end I'll talk about what we're doing going forward. So with our data, really our goal is to work with the team at CCF To make sure our data is accessible and useful, on the left here, you can see how our data is directly assisting patients. If you go to CCF's website right now, there is a specialist map that some of you may have used or seen, and that specialist map is powered by Komodo's data. We started this a few years ago, and we worked with the foundation to use all of the information we have on patients and healthcare providers to make that accessible to patients so they can find specialists in their area. And so they can be assured that if they're looking for a specialist, where they're located in the US, that we've used Komodo's data and set criteria that these healthcare providers are experts and are specialists in treating cholangiocarcinoma. And we make sure that that is updated regularly so patients have direct access to that data. And on the right here, through our software platform and our tools as well, we work closely with the team at CCF to expand and broaden their network of healthcare providers. And the team, one of the team's goals is to make sure that education is going out where it's needed and that directed education and partnership with healthcare providers. And so we've provided data on newly diagnosed patients so that the team can know where to send support and direct resources. And we've also just in general used our data to help the team reach those providers that are treating patients. So some of the questions that we can ask with our data, with the powerful, comprehensive healthcare map, these are just some examples. So just basic question, where are patients located? So looking at the geography of the US, you can see the heat map on the right-hand side. We can really look at where are the cholangiocarcinoma patients located. We can start to understand where patients are being diagnosed, where they're being treated, and what healthcare professionals are doing the diagnosing and are doing the treating, and what healthcare sites are patients being seen. Are they mostly at academic or community centers? An interesting thing we can also look at by comparing data over the course of months or years, that are there hotspots of newly diagnosed patients popping up in certain parts of the US? Are there areas of the country where rates of diagnosis are increasing, and what does that mean, and how can we approach that? We also can look at where healthcare professionals are located. This is important, are there deserts of care? Is there an area where there are a lot of patients, but maybe not a lot of healthcare professionals that are treating and diagnosing cholangiocarcinoma? And finally, something that we've been looking at Komodo, not just in cholangiocarcinoma, but in other disease areas as well, is how has the pandemic affected healthcare? How is the pandemic affecting the diagnosis, treatment, frequency of care of cholangiocarcinoma patients? And we can also look into have providers switch to telemedicine. And as we heard earlier, that's been really powerful. And so these are just examples of the types of questions that we've been working with the CCF team and that we can really investigate using our data. So a very basic question, and this is kind of a fundamental question that Stacy came to us with from the very beginning, and that we are trying to kind of nail down, right? You can't change something or understand something if you can't measure it. And so we are using our data because we're able to see really every encounter patients have with the healthcare system. We can look into our data and say how many patients had their first encounter for cholangiocarcinoma and received that diagnosis within a certain time frame. And so these numbers that I'm showing, I think were a little maybe surprising to the team. They seem to suggest that there are maybe higher numbers of patients being diagnosed every year than we might be seeing in other data sources. So just some other examples of some of the questions and projects we've worked on with the team. So because Komodo's data, we were able to see every encounter with the healthcare system a patient is having, it's really powerful to look into the patient journey. So we can really see patients from diagnosis throughout treatment and trace and understand that journey. One area we've looked into is biomarker testing. And so aligning with CCF's initiative, Biomarkers Matter, we've been asking some questions about biomarker testing in cholangiocarcinoma patients. And so these are just some questions that we've been looking into. We want to understand just what percentage of patients receive biomarker testing. Importantly, we want to know how much time elapses from first diagnosis to that first order for a biomarker test. And then do patients' experiences or the patient journey, this percentage of testing or the time it takes to get that first test, does this differ at depending on where the patient is seen, so at community or academic organizations? And so just to give you a little overview at kind of our first delving into this topic, and so we looked at, of all of the patients that received their first diagnosis of cholangiocarcinoma, so that first encounter with the healthcare system where they were initially diagnosed, how many days occurred between that time and the time a biomarker test was ordered? So looking into our data, we found that the median amount of time was 54 days. And so we wanted to understand, was this different at academic versus community sites, and in this case did not find a significant difference. And that 54 days seems slightly alarming and slightly long. And just to call out that this was the median, it was very skewed. It was skewed towards that kind of lower end, so many patients do receive an order for a biomarker test very quickly after their diagnosis, but there was that long tail, and that's where we're seeing that 54 days in the median. And then we wanted to just ask this a different way, look at this from a different perspective. Just what percentage of cholangiocarcinoma patients overall receive biomarker testing? And importantly, did that differ depending on whether the patient was seen at a community versus an academic site? And so looking at the 3 years, 2017, 18, and entirety of 2019, we saw that 9% of patients overall receive a biomarker test, an order for a biomarker test, anytime after their initial diagnosis. And looking into it further, we did see a difference at academic versus community institutions. And you can look at the graph on the right, which just shows the percentage per year. And what's encouraging is that that percentage is increasing every year. And we would expect if we looked at 2021, the overall percentage would be higher as well. But what's a little concerning is that the gap between academic and community centers may be getting a little larger. And I think that this type of analysis and this type of data is important for the foundation to understand so they can know kind of where to direct resources, where to direct education. And this is kind of our first stab at looking at this question, and we'll be diving into this more in the future. So just to talk about a little bit of the future, our partnership continues to grow as Komodo's data expands and our software platforms and offering expands. We're able to do so much more. As we have more resources, we're able to provide more resources to the foundation. So really excited for that. And we're working with doing research with research partners and really excited to expand that. So just some examples of questions that we want to look into further, but definitely happy to kind of connect with anyone who has additional ideas or additional questions. We started to look into the prevalence of autoimmune disorders in cholangiocarcinoma patients. Working with the team, they were interested to know this because autoimmune disorders can then disqualify patients for some clinical trials, so it's important to understand those comorbidities. We want to understand clinical trial participation, and then importantly, because the basis of our data is claims, medical claims based, we're able to help track uptake and usage of the new cholangiocarcinoma diagnosis codes that are coming out. And so this will be helpful to kind of track where maybe usage or uptake is lagging, so then the team can direct education and resources. But yeah, just thanks to the rest of the Komodo team that helps to support the partnership and our partners at CCF. It's been such a pleasure working with them this past year and really looking forward to what we're doing in the future. Thanks.